People are sharing the creepiest unsolved mysteries that they can't stop thinking about. So I decided to look into the details of each one. Brandon Swanson's case always boggled my mind. The fact that he alerted his parents that he was lost and needed help. They were on the phone with him, heading toward him, only to hear his last moments. To know they were so close is so terrifying. Recently, Reddit user uRandomweeb asked the people of r/ask Reddit to share the creepiest unsolved mystery that keeps them up at night. After reading through some of these, I will definitely not be sleeping soundly for the next couple of days. Here are the most bone-chilling cases. Warning: disturbing and graphic content ahead.
1. Tammy Daniel. What happened to Tammy Jean Daniel in 1987? Tammy Jean Daniel was a beautiful young woman who vanished after being dropped off at her home. Tammy graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School in the spring of 1980. She loved riding motorcycles and had a dog that she adored named Shasta. She married her husband, Ronald Jean Daniel, 18 months prior to her disappearance. She was described by those who knew her as a sweet, beautiful young woman. Tammy vanished after being dropped off at her home by her parents. Around 3 a.m. on the morning of June 2, 1987, Tammy's parents picked her up from the El Cid Club in Berkeley, West Virginia. They took her to her trailer home where she lived with her husband, Gene, in Stanford, West Virginia. According to her parents, the trailer's door was locked, and when her mother offered to knock on the windows to wake Gene, Tammy declined her offer. Tammy explained that she would just sleep in a tent in the front yard instead of waking Gene. Her parents felt uneasy about this choice, but Tammy insisted, so they left, last seeing her sitting on the steps of her trailer as they drove away. Shortly after leaving, her parents turned around and returned to the trailer to make another attempt at convincing Tammy to come stay at their home. When they arrived, they heard what sounded like a storm door closing, and they were unable to find Tammy. They left the trailer once again after assuming that Gene had let Tammy inside. Tammy was reported missing in the following days. Tammy's parents returned to Tammy's trailer and asked Gene if he knew where she was the following day. He insisted that he did not know where she was. On June 5, 1987, Gene borrowed a vacuum from a neighbor. According to the neighbor, when he returned the vacuum, it had a bad smell and was covered in a sticky substance. Shortly after her disappearance, authorities visited her trailer to conduct a search. Inside, detectives found a stain on the carpet in the bedroom, which they believed to be blood. Gene is indicted for Tammy's murder. In 1988, Raleigh County prosecuting attorney Kristen Keller indicted Gene for Tammy's murder. The indictment was later dismissed due to lack of sufficient evidence that would be required to find him guilty in a court of law. I think one of the hardest parts of this case is weeding through the rumors that are out there. We still run down every lead that comes up, though. We do it for the family. Her mom has never given up. We haven't given up either. Raleigh County Sheriff's Office, Captain Larry Lilly. Gene was arrested in 1989 for killing a young man. Gene was arrested in January 1989 for the murder of Walter Morgan on July 8, 1988, at a nightclub in Daniels, West Virginia. He claims that the shooting that resulted in Walter's death was in self-defense. He is found guilty of his crime, is sentenced, and serves his time before being released. Where the case stands today. In 2007, authorities received a tip that led them to search a property in the Sand Lick area of Raleigh County, West Virginia. Officials from the sheriff's office and forensic anthropologists conducted a thorough search of the property for any sign of Tammy, but they were unable to find anything. I've prayed for 27 years every day that God would allow me to find her and have some answers to what happened to her and to have some justice. He may know I can't even handle what happened to her. Norma Hensdill, Tammy's mother. At the time of her disappearance in 1987, Tammy was described as a 24-year-old Caucasian woman with light brown hair and blue eyes. She was 5'7" tall and weighed approximately 130 pounds. Tammy has a splenectomy scar on her abdomen, and her maiden name is Hensdill. Tammy's case has remained unsolved for more than 35 years. If you have any information regarding Tammy's disappearance or her whereabouts, please contact the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office at 304-255-9300 or Crime Stoppers of West Virginia. 2. Shelton Sanders. What happened to Shelton Sanders in 2001? Shelton Sanders was a University of South Carolina student with big ambitions, countless dreams, and his whole life ahead of him. Shelton was studying administrative information management and was working part-time as a computer programmer for USC's neuropsychiatry department in the School of Medicine at the time of his disappearance. He had big dreams of owning his own consulting business as a computer programmer. He was looking forward to getting married, having children of his own, and even raising cattle, according to his sister. My goals are to finish college and receive a degree in administrative information management. Beyond college, I would like to work for a company for 3 years, then I would like to start and run my own computer company. Taken from Shelton's personal website. Shelton was a high-achieving student and a hard worker with a bright future ahead of him. He was described by family members as being incredibly intelligent and never complaining about the requirements of his studies and job. He was a family man at heart, always prioritizing his family over everything else. He was a super young man. He was smart, intelligent, willing, and able to work. Did not complain. He was very involved in his family. He made us proud. William Sanders, Shelton's father. Shelton was last seen on June 19, 2001 in Columbia, South Carolina. On the evening of June 19, 2001, Shelton traveled from his family's home in Rembert, South Carolina to Columbia, South Carolina, where he attended a full day of classes and work. Afterwards, he stayed later than usual to work on planning details for a friend's upcoming bachelor party. He last spoke with his parents between 8 o'clock to 9 p.m., when he let them know he would be home later than usual and that he would be leaving shortly. Around 9:30 p.m., he went to Wellesley Inn and Suites before going to an Embassy Suites hotel in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, to inquire about pricing for the bachelor party. He reportedly went to the hotels with his friend and former college roommate, Mark Richardson. After looking at hotels, the pair reportedly went to Mark's home on Olympia Avenue in Columbia, South Carolina, to finish working out some details for the party. This is Shelton's last known location. A neighbor reported hearing gunshots sometime before midnight. One of Mark's neighbors reported hearing 3 gunshots coming from the direction of Mark's home shortly before midnight. When he walked over to see what happened, Mark reportedly told him that his car was backfiring. Shelton was reported missing 3 days later, on June 22, 2001. Shelton's car was found nearly 2 years later. On April 26, 2003, the car Shelton was driving on the night of his disappearance, his brother's white 1988 Oldsmobile Regency, was found in the parking lot of the Greenbrier apartment complex in Columbia, South Carolina. The car was found abandoned, backed into a parking spot. Authorities quickly determined that the car had been in the parking lot since his disappearance. According to authorities, cell phone records show that shortly after midnight, Richardson drove to the Greenbrier apartment complex in Columbia, South Carolina, leading them to believe that he had taken the car there on the night of Shelton's disappearance in an effort to hide it. Last person with him, gunshots were heard at his house by a credible witness. The vehicle that Shelton was last seen in was actually found right next to where we were able to triangulate Mark Richardson's cell phone records. Walter McDaniels, former lead investigator. In 2005, Richardson was arrested for Shelton's murder, and his trial began in 2008. On October 5, 2005, Mark Richardson was arrested and charged with Shelton's murder, despite his body not being found. His bond was set at $100,000. While being interviewed by investigators prior to his trial, Richardson reportedly asked the following questions. "Let me ask you a hypothetical question. Is there such a thing as an accidental death in the state of South Carolina?" And after he was told he'd be given the opportunity to explain, Richardson also asked, "How can I explain getting rid of a body?" Richardson's trial began on April 14, 2008, at the Sumter County Courthouse in Sumter, South Carolina. By April 21, 2008, when the jury went in for deliberations, they were unable to reach a verdict. 7 jurors reportedly voted Richardson guilty, while the remaining 5 voted him not guilty. Due to this, his trial not only ended in a hung jury, but the judge declared a mistrial. Richardson was released shortly after, and Shelton's case has seen no resolution since. Through the initial investigation, they were able to gather enough evidence to determine that it was a homicide, and the homicide, it's gone cold. It was turned over to cold cases this year. We're following up on things that are already there, that people are coming forward about, and we're hoping that events like today will kind of inspire people to think about what's going on, how this has impacted the family in the last 20 years. Richland County Sheriff's Office Senior Investigator, Dottie Crenice. Where the case stands today. In 2018, Shelton's sister, Wilveria, launched the Finding Shelton Sanders Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Ever since, she has stepped up to the role of being Shelton's advocate. In the following years, the reward for information increased from $10,000 to $25,000 to $50,000, where it sits today. Billboards have been erected across Columbia, South Carolina, urging the public to come forward with information that would lead to Shelton's whereabouts or bring justice to his family. We've forgiven anyone who's had any dealings with the murder or disappearance of my brother. We just want to bring him home to a proper burial spot where he belongs. Wilveria Sanders, Shelton's sister. At the time of his disappearance in 2001, Shelton was described as a 25-year-old African-American man with black hair and brown eyes. He was 6'1", tall, and weighed approximately 225 pounds. Shelton was last seen wearing a short-sleeved button-down shirt, khaki pants, and a Movado watch with a stainless steel band and a black face with diamonds. We will never give up. We will keep going until all searches are completed, no stone left unturned. Shelton's sister, Wilveria Sanders. If you have any information, please contact the Richland County Sheriff's Department, Cold Case Unit at 803-576-3000 or Crime Stoppers of the Midlands at 888, Crime SC, 274-6372. There is currently a $50,000 reward being offered for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the individual or individuals responsible for Shelton's disappearance.